When we spend time thinking about how we can't change the world, we forget that the power to change someone's life, especially our own, is always in our hands. To discover authoritative content that has the power to transform. From the library to the classroom, at home, and into the world. Research for everyone. Teaching for everyone. Learning for everyone. Gale, here for everyone.
Hello, I am Masaki Morisawa from the publisher Gale, and today I'm very happy to share with you some of my thoughts on how the study of literature offers students opportunities to hone important life skills and how we can help them achieve those goals. But first of all, why study literature at all? There are many ways to tackle this question, but I found a rather striking example in this particular blog post by a colored woman explaining what white privilege means to a friend. So, she mentions, in my freshman college tutorial, our small group of 4 to 5 was assigned to read Thoreau, Emerson, Malcolm X, Joseph Conrad, Dreiser, etc. When it was the week to discuss the autobiography of Malcolm X, one white boy boldly claimed he couldn't even get through it because he couldn't relate and didn't think he should be forced to read it. And she says, my whole life, I've had to read things that don't have anything to do with me or that I relate to. But I find a way anyway because that's what learning is about, trying to understand other people's perspectives. I think this is a very apt example in these rather polarized times on how literature allows us to transcend our own limited perspectives and allows us to see the world from other people's eyes. Empathy, in other words. But reading literature is different from, say, reading a blog post or a tweet or a news article. Like this article, introductory article from a literature course mentions, to read literature is to read slowly. It means rereading and pondering about the meaning of words and how and why they are written. And this is very, very different from the kind of tweet reading or blog reading or post reading that today's young people are accustomed to. A deep reading of literature involves analyses, where students need to consider various contextual elements such as plot, setting, style, layers of meanings from within the text, or information outside the text such as historical and social context. And to take it to the next level, students are often required to write a full-fledged analysis, or paper, in other words. Here, it really becomes crucial to demonstrate and strengthen their reading by quoting extensively from secondary literature, such as biographies, criticisms written by other people, works explaining the time period or context in which the work was written, etc., etc. And gathering this kind of secondary material can be a time-consuming process, as much of this material exists outside of the open web, scattered in various different publications in various time periods. And this is where publishers like Gale can help, as we have been known as a publisher of literary resources for many decades, and we have gathered all this information into an easy-to-use full-text database, such as Gale Literature Resource Center. So, take for example, Albert Camus' The Plague, La Peste, This is a 20th century classic novel. And it is interesting because this novel, written in the 1940s, has enjoyed a resurgence in recent years because of the ongoing COVID pandemic and its obvious parallels with the situation described in the work. But like all great literary works, it is a work that allows many different interpretations. So I have logged into Gale Literature Resource Center, and I would like to show you what you can find about Camus' Plague in Gale Literature Resource Center. This is the Gale Literature Resource Center homepage. As you can see, there is a very simple search box. There are search paths by authors and works, and you can see some featured authors and featured works. It's a very uncluttered and simple experience, and it also works on mobile devices. I can do a search on Camus Plague and simply hit search. And I am taken to the search results page where I see a list of icons at the top showing the types of material available to me. You have literature criticism, we have biographies, topic and work overviews, reviews and news, primary sources and literary works, multimedia. And this is very, very helpful to the student because each of these resources have different purposes and they provide different context from different standpoints. So it's really important that the students understand intuitively how these types of works differ. And all of these are secondary sources about Camus' Plague. So say if I was a student who has just read The Plague and I want to gain a better understanding of the work, but not too difficult language. The first place I might want to go would be the topic and work overviews page. And here you would see some rather student-oriented introductions to the plague and other related works. So I can open this one, Overview the Plague. This is from our series Novels for Students, and it gives you a short introduction followed by a plot summary and some analyses of major characters. And reading this alone would help the student kind of understand some of the basic points about the work. Now, back to the results screen, I might get interested in the author, Albert Camus, and what other works he has written. Then I can go to the Biographies tab, and for instance, I can click on a biographical entry on Albert Camus, again from Gale publication, Nobel Prize laureates in literature. And this will be written by a university professor who specializes in this author's work. And you will see a very extensive bibliography, very well written, followed by a narrative biography, a critical biography rather, which kind of looks into Camus' life and also into his creative output as he lived. And this will really give them a historical and biographical context about this author and his important works. Now, if you really want to read more in-depth criticism, you can go into the main part of Literature Resource Center, which will be the literature criticism part. And you can view various criticism over the years. Literature is a very, very historical discipline. So it doesn't mean in literature, new is not necessarily better. So you can read important pieces of criticisms from the 1970s, for example. And this looks at Camus' work from a theistic point of view. Or you can read others, such as this one, looks at Camus' Plague and how it has been interpreted over the years in many different times. Or you can read other various analyses written by various other authors from various time periods, from various standpoints as well. Now, if this is a little bit too much, students can also click on what we call the topic finder. And this will give them a sort of a heat map of the keywords that appear in all of these materials. And they can, for example, click on Dr. Ryu, who is one of the, well, basically the main character of this novel. And by clicking on this, you would see related articles on the right-hand side. And you can find some things that are kind of unexpected, really. For example, this one, Culture in the New Iraq National Library and Archive. So this is not exactly a literary article, but it compares Albert Camus' main protagonist, Ryu, with this gentleman, Saad Eskander, who is the Director General of the Iraq National Library and Archive, because they are facing very similar situations of a guy trying to do his job under extraordinary circumstances, in this case, extraordinary political circumstances. So that's another different point of view that you can add when looking into the work. Or you can go and see more recent works under the reviews and news section. One that I found particularly interesting was this one, The Writer for Tormented Times. This was written in 2020, last year, during our ongoing pandemic. And it now analyzes Albert Camus' Plague and how it is relevant and how some of the parts or some of the points of view, such as Camus' kind of unconscious colonial point of view, have not aged very well in our times. So it's a really interesting way to look at the work. So back to my PowerPoint. In conclusion, while reading literature in itself is an important learning activity for students, they can gain an even deeper, multifaceted understanding of its meaning and cultural context by reading widely of secondary sources about the work in question. And library databases such as Gale's make discovering such relevant resources so much easier and its exploration so much more exciting. So thank you very much.